What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Everyday Discipline, where we decode, deconstruct, and reverse engineer self-discipline for you to get whatever you want in your life and not in just one area of your life. If you want the body that you want, it's going to require discipline. If you want the relationships you want, it's going to require discipline. Ultimately, if you want the money you want, it's going to require discipline. And if you want the purpose and the confidence and the consistency that you want, well, guess what? Guess what that requires? Oh yes, it's discipline. My name is Brent Kokel. I'm your host. As always, love it when you guys are here on the show with me. I have a good time recording these episodes. I hope you guys get something out of these episodes. As you guys know, as we get through the format of how this show works, this isn't just for purposes of entertainment, right? I want you to be entertained by this. I want you to think differently as you listen to each one of these episodes, but even more than that, I want you to do something about it. So every single episode, I am going to give you guys action, like a call to action towards the end of the episode that is something that you do in your own life to solidify what we were talking about in the episode and ultimately propel yourself forward. Because if you're here investing your time on the show, you might as well get something specifically for you out of it. And that's exactly what I want for you, which is why we get to the call to action. But normally we go through a couple things like a story, we go through a lesson, we go through an application of that lesson, and ultimately get it for you where you need it to be. So one of the things that happens to me in my normal circles, like in the town where I live, we've got little league teams, we've got plays, we've got all this stuff. And as that happens, there are parents that go to these things. And I'm seen as the guy that's like, hey, when you want to talk about business, you come talk to me. Now, I am not a $25 million a year entrepreneur, but I've done pretty well for myself. And so I get it. Like if people come to me, I have really studied this. I have really experienced this. And I generally know what I'm doing when it comes to the game of business. And so I had a buddy that came up to me at a Little League game a couple weeks ago that wanted to go meet for a cup of coffee because he had a new business idea specifically about coffee. And he wanted to meet with me to talk to me about this idea and what he might go down with it. So we sit there and I walk into the coffee shop that we were going to meet at, and he's sitting in the corner, and I go grab a cup of coffee and I come in, I sit with him, and he's talking to me about this new business idea, and he's like lit up. Like he's super excited about this. You can see it in his eyes. Like there's a brightness in his eyes and like an energy in his speech that is something that is like there for optimism. And it is awesome. And I started asking him questions about this. And one of the things, that comes out is that he doesn't have any experience in this business. The business that he wants to start doesn't have any experience in what he wants to do. But what's interesting too is he was talking about the process that they were going through to start this business. They'd been looking at retail space the day before. They want to rent it. And it was interesting about this whole thing because I asked him, what's the distribution model? Like, what's going to go down? How are you going to get this product into the hands of your consumers? And it was like, well, we got our website. We're going to run some social media. And I'm just sitting there going okay, that is not a plan. That's not a plan at all. And I know it's not a plan because that was once my quote unquote plan and it failed terribly. Here's the deal. He hadn't even considered the downside. He hadn't considered the downside of how long the lease would be and how much he was committing financially to that. Hadn't really understood what the profit margin needed to be by buying the wholesale product and then marking it up to retail with a cost of customer acquisition, with a cost of fulfillment, with the cost of shipping, or with the cost of a brick and mortar location. He hadn't considered the risk of the lease, of the inventory, of the staff for a concept that he didn't even know would work. Now you might be thinking that as I'm having this conversation with him, I'm the guy that's taking a shit in the punch bowl. That's not the case. Really everything that I look back on that I have screwed up is because all I could see was the upside. And that's the lesson. When all you see is upside, the downside just creeps up on you. It doesn't go away. If all you see is the upside, the downside is going to creep up on you. And don't get me wrong, you have to be optimistic to even want to start a business. There's so many people out there, and you probably know them, and maybe you're one of them that have a great idea or talk constantly about their ideas, but don't ever go forward with it because they lack the optimism necessary to move forward, to even want to start a business, or even if you've got a business, to do things in that business to expand it. It requires a great degree of optimism, because we need to think that it's going to get better, that our ideas are going to go into the marketplace, they're going to resonate with people, and they're ultimately going to come back to us in a way that makes us profitable, that makes us a way where we are stockpiling cash. And this is it. You've got to look at what happens when everything works just as you think it will. Like, that's ultimately what happens, is we think that things are going to go exactly to plan, and then we go into the world and it doesn't work exactly to plan, and we're like, oh shit, what do we do now? We've got all this capital invested, we've got all these commitments made, what are we gonna do? Like, that's ultimately the question that happens, because what happens is you think that everything is just gonna work out the way that you think it's going to work out without assessing this. But being able to assess the downside by getting real with yourself is going to keep more money in your pocket than anything else. It's not about the upside, right? There's always an upside. There's always an optimism. It's easy to see that. What's not easy to see, and you've got to peel back the layers and have a real conversation with yourself about what could go wrong, because that's going to keep more money in your pocket than anything. I think about this in my own experience, and all I saw was upside. And that upside ended up costing just south of $400,000, about $376,000, which, for those of you who are keeping score, is about a Lamborghini. And this happened to me because all I saw was upside. So what happened was, and I've talked about this on the show before, was I used to do outdoor muddy obstacle course races, like Spartan races, Tough Mudders, shit like that. And I noticed in 2015 that there was a ton of people doing the races, and there wasn't a specific brand of apparel that would help for those races, that was designed to be in those races, because it basically, what do you wear? You're gonna get muddy, you're gonna get wet. How does it work? And I saw people wearing old basketball shorts. Like, I was wearing old basketball shorts for my first race that I ever did. And it felt like there needed to be something more specific. And so I started doing all this research. And I noticed that 15 million people did an obstacle course race in 2015. And so then I started thinking about it, and I'm running the numbers. And I don't know if you guys do this when you think of business ideas, but it's like, if I could just capture 5% of that market, man, we're going to sell like $4 million a year. And that, of course, is the way that I looked at it. And I saw all this optimism. I'm looking at each one of these races going like, there is no way I can't sell 5% of these people a pair of shorts, or a sports bra, or a pair of compression sleeves, or whatever, right? I was making a bunch of different products. All I saw was the upside of this. I saw growth in the sport, because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for data that would support my belief rather than attack my belief. And because of that, my belief got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So my risk tolerance and my optimism got higher and higher and higher and higher, till the point where my optimism was so far up that it would have been impossible for me to see anything other than upside. So I make my first season of this stuff, I bring it to market, and hardly anybody buys it. And because I'm still optimistic, because my belief system is so high up there right now, because I looked for confirmation bias through the data rather than actually looking for things to attack it, I go ahead and I say, well, fuck it, let's just make another season. That's really the problem. It's not that the clothes aren't there. It's not that the marketing isn't there. It's that people need more options. We need some more colors over here. So if we got more colors, we're going to be on fire. Well, damn it. That didn't work either. Ultimately, what this comes down to is that I did not know at the time how to market shit. I didn't know how to be a marketer. I didn't know how to sell stuff online. I didn't know, I had a bunch of skill sets that were not mine at the time. Actually are now, but they weren't mine at the time. Very, very expensive lesson to learn to figure out a new skill set. But I was just so damn optimistic that nobody could tell me anything to bring me to any other idea. Now, as I approach new businesses, I always work on the attacking of my belief first. Like, I think this is the upside. Great. What's going to happen if there's a downside? If this doesn't go right, if that doesn't go right, if the cost of customer acquisition is 30% higher than I think it's going to be, does the model still hold up? And if I can't get myself to a spot where I know that I'm going to knock the cover off the ball, then I don't move forward. It's that simple. You've just got to attack the belief, because there's always optimism. Always. That's the easy thing to find. Digging under the layer and finding out what could ultimately be true if things go wrong, that's the ultimate work of the business. So let's get to the action here today. And the action is I'm going to presume that you've got an idea. And I'm going to presume that you're optimistic about that idea. Either you don't have a business right now and you want to start your own. You got a side hustle, you want to make it your full-time gig, or you've got an existing business that's already doing pretty well, but you want to take some action that's going to expand it. Right now you're optimistic about that and you're looking at it going like, man, we could really, really do some good here. And you might be able to. But what I want you to do as part of this today is look at what the downside could be. If your assumptions are wrong by even 10%, what does that do to that business? Is it something where it's still worth that risk? So ask yourself that question and do this in the next 24 hours. If you wait until the end of the week, you won't do it, you'll forget. But it's an important work to do if you want to make sure to keep the money in your pocket that you currently have. Mine cost a Lamborghini. I don't want yours to cost a Lamborghini. The good news for you guys is I screwed up enough stuff to figure out how to do it right. And I'll share with you everything that I screwed up so you don't have to screw it up too. How about that? That's a good deal for listening to a podcast. All right, guys, that's it. That's the show for the day, everybody. Hey, before you leave, do me a favor, give me a rating on whatever platform that you are listening on. It helps with the algorithm. More people find this show. I put this show out because I give a shit. There are a lot of people that don't have what they want in their life. They haven't reached their potential. I don't want you to be one of them. So please rate this show. More people will find it. More people will find their potential. And that will make the world a better place. I'm going to do my job and come back next time. I want you to do your job and you come back too.